Friends, in this video, we're going to talk about the 4 executive orders that President Trump signed on August 8th, 2020, attempting to sidestep Congress and get the job done himself. This is all about the stimulus, guys. 4 major issues that Trump addressed in his executive orders are related to stimulus talks that broke down on Capitol Hill, and President Trump stepped in because these leaders in Washington were unable to get the job done. But is President Trump getting the job done here as well, or is this just political posturing? The first executive order touches on the $600 a week unemployment boost that many people had been receiving under the CARES Act. Now, the $600 program dried up or ended at the end of July, which left a lot of people in a very, very difficult position. So under President Trump's plan, folks would continue to receive unemployment benefits, but at $400 a week rather than $600 a week. He expects the federal government to pay $300 and states to match or pay $100. And so we're going to look right into where they're going to get this money from. And the executive order tells us, exactly where the money is coming from. So it says here that $150 billion was appropriated to the states under the CARES Act to cover costs incurred due to the COVID-19 emergency. And now there's $80 billion left over. There's a balance of $80 billion in that fund that can be used towards funding this unemployment insurance program. But then he also says here that FEMA has $70 billion also in emergency assistance funding that's available, and that's the DRF fund here, the Disaster Relief Fund. President Trump is directing up to $44 billion from the Disaster Relief Fund to be used towards funding this program. And then he is calling on states, guys. Section 3 says, I am calling on states to use amounts allocated to them out of the CRF fund or any other fund that the state may have to provide the additional $100 per week. So how long will this last? So it says here, friends, under Section 6 that this lost wages assistance program will be available until the balance in the DRF fund reaches $25 billion or until December 6, 2020, whichever event occurs first. And so that's where the funding will be coming from for the $400 a week unemployment insurance program. But one thing that you guys need to understand is that what is the likelihood of states complying with this? Yes, the president said, I'm calling on states to contribute to this, but it does not bind and obligate the states to do a darn thing, right? No, states only respond to federal law, and this is not a federal law. This is an executive order, a policy directive from the president. And so the states are not bound or obligated to comply with this. So that's why he had to use the language, I am calling on states to help us out, to do something, to add that extra $100 that's needed. And guys, you know that states are facing a major budget shortfall. Many states are in a dire situation right now, and they're also looking to the federal government to give them more aid. So the likelihood of governors stepping up and saying, yes, we have the money to contribute to this, or yes, we want to use our coronavirus funds to support this effort, the likelihood of that is really slim. And so President Trump can now posture and say, see, I've put this out there. I've put this out there to help the people, yet the governors are not responding. It's the governor's fault. Governors are holding up the process. So that's the next argument that we could expect out of the White House. Now let's get into the second executive order. This second executive order touches on the eviction moratorium issue that we've talked about, which I'll link to here. But under President Trump's executive order, which is incredibly vague, and let me get that on the screen for you so that you guys can see exactly what I mean by this when I say that this is so vague. There's really not much in here. But this is the executive order on fighting the spread of COVID-19 by providing assistance to renters and homeowners. And so the policy under this, friends, is, I don't even know, honestly, it doesn't make much sense, but it says that the policy is to minimize to the greatest extent possible residential evictions and foreclosures during the ongoing COVID-19 emergency. And so what it does, it says that the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Director of CDC shall consider whether any measures temporarily halting residential evictions of any tenants for failure to pay rent are reasonably necessary to prevent the further spread of COVID-19 from one state to another. Now, what exactly does this mean? What are they saying? That these directors shall meet and consider measures that can stop the eviction of people? Yes, they could have meetings, but how will real people be impacted by this? Well, Section B attempts to drill down by saying that the Secretary of the Treasury and Ben Carson, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, shall identify any and all federal funds to provide temporary financial assistance to renters and homeowners who are basically having financial hardships. But how are they going to identify these people? We don't know. By having more meetings? That's really all this says. There's really not anything else to this one here. They're going to take action as appropriate to promote the ability of renters and homeowners to avoid eviction or foreclosure from financial hardships caused by COVID-19. Such action may include encouraging and providing assistance to public housing authorities, affordable housing owners, landlords, and recipients of federal grants, funds in minimizing evictions and foreclosures. So I don't even know what this is all about, because it's not that concrete. It sounds like they're directing their directors to meet and come up with ideas on how to prevent people from being evicted. So that was very vague. Let's get into the third executive order. And this one is around student loan. This one is a little bit more defined. And so under this one, let me get it up on the screen for you so that we're all on the same page here. So this is the memorandum on continued student loan payment relief during the COVID-19 pandemic. And what this one does, friends, is it basically extends the deferments to borrowers, it says here, as necessary to continue the temporary cessation of payment and the waiver of all interest on student loans held by the Department of Education until December 31st, 2020. Now, this one is more defined. And so for those of you who have federal student loans, you don't have to pay your loans, although you should, right, during this time. But they're saying that your payments can be deferred until December 31st, 2020, and no interest will be accruing during this time. So that's good news for students. All right, now let's get into the last executive order, the payroll tax issue. And this one, the president is essentially promising that for those of you who are still working and receiving a paycheck, you do not have to pay that payroll tax. And so your paycheck will go up a little bit, right? You'll see more money in your paycheck. And he promises that if you re-elect him, in November, he will make this permanent. So he says here. And so this one, friends, this is the memorandum on deferring payroll tax obligations in light of the ongoing COVID-19 disaster. And Section 2 says that the Secretary of the Treasury is hereby directed to use his authority to defer the withholding, deposit, and payment of the tax on wages or compensation paid during the period of September 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. So for this one, the president is saying that between September 1st and December 31st, the payroll tax will not be collected, and thus you will see more money in your paycheck. But if you, like I said, if you reelect him, he'll make that one permanent. So friends, what in the world? What in the world, right? What is the likelihood of all of these policies being executed properly? Well, the student loan policy, that's an easy one for them to control and continue to order that payments should be deferred. That's easy. No interest. That's easy. The other policy that is easy to do, but it's still very vague, is the eviction moratorium. Yes, the government, through Trump's executive order, extend that moratorium. But the other two, guys, I would say the other two, the unemployment insurance and the payroll tax issue, I think those two are going to be harder to execute on, particularly the unemployment issue, because that's going to really depend on states stepping up and saying, yes, we will provide funds towards this. And the likelihood of that happening is extremely slim. So President Trump has done this posturing so that he can put more pressure on Congress to do their job. And Congress, will they do their job? They might be very embarrassed by this. Obviously, I'm pretty sure they're embarrassed by this. Chuck Schumer wouldn't even commit to saying whether any of this is legal or not. Can Trump do this? He's not responding to this. He's declining to say that they can't do this, that these executive orders are illegal. He just simply said they don't do the job. But are they legal or not? Senator Schumer, he's not responding to that. He doesn't know. Some things are legal, some things are not legal. Taxation belongs to Congress. The purse belongs to Congress, not the executive. So they could fight on those two fronts. But the other stuff, Trump can do those things. And it's quite embarrassing that Congress couldn't even reach consensus around those issues. So it forces them back to the negotiation table, get things done. It makes them look bad if they continue to not agree on something. Now, where's the $1,200 stimulus check? It's not in here. It's not in here because Trump cannot execute on that one. $1,200 stimulus check is sitting with Congress for them to get back together and come up with something that is workable. We know that President Trump wanted $1,200 stimulus checks in the hands of people, right, during this election season. But that hasn't happened yet. And the likelihood of that happening, guys, it looks kind of slim. It really does, unless Pelosi and Mitch McConnell come together and do something to regain face. They've lost face in all of this. It's so embarrassing for Congress. But again, Trump is posturing. This is all political. It's going to be very difficult for him to execute on getting those unemployment benefits to people. And so this thing may be tied up for a while. Yes, there's going to be some litigation. Of course, they're expecting some lawsuit to happen to stop him with some of this, but they're still going to move forward and let them move forward on some of the policy fronts. But the other stuff, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to get done. So, guys, that's the summary in this one. That's where things stand right now. I'll keep you guys posted. And lastly, the USCIS bailout issue is definitely not in any of the executive orders that President Trump has signed. So there is nothing immigration related in any of these executive orders. And you guys know that President Trump is not looking to do anything to help immigrants out these days. So all of those immigration issues are excluded from the executive orders. Friends, if you enjoyed this video, if you thought it was informative and helpful, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, share it with other people, subscribe to my channel, and guys, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.